Week 7, and it started off with a doubleheader. The Quackers versus the Whompers. Darren McGuire had it going on early as his single here would bring across 2 runs, and the Quackers had 4 in the top of the first. In the bottom half, Joe Capitelli's single would bring across 1, and in the second, Darren McGuire would get 2 runs back before Joe Capitelli would finally settle in with a strikeout. In the bottom half, Joe Capitelli would help the Whompers hang around as they score a run before Regis Pollard finally settles into his groove and gets a strikeout. So it's 6-2 in the next frame, and the Whompers are going to make a play at third and try to get the runner home. Joe Capitelli starts arguing that the throw got Darren McGuire, and clearly slowing it down. Wasn't even close. I don't know what he was looking at, but Darren McGuire would continue to hit as the Whompers are unable to make the play, and the Quackers score 7 in the top of the third. In the bottom half, Regis would continue to groove as a pitcher and on offense. In the fourth, he'd hit a grand slam that would mercy the Whompers, and in the bottom half, after strikeout, this would be the final play of the game. They get the out at first, and Joe Capitelli trying to steal home. Josh Swan would get him. And just for good measure, there it is. He's out before he hits the plate. The Quackers would go on to win by a final of 22-2. Game 2, and it was the same teams. Josh Swan on the hill and Josh Neff getting a start to the scoring as he hit a 3-run shot, and Joe Capitelli would go down on strikes. In the bottom half, Darren McGuire's grounder and Chris Wilson would make it look difficult. As it goes in the 5-hole, 2 runs would come around. Later in the inning, Pollard would double off the fence to bring around 2, and the Quackers were up 9-3. Swan was pitching well and struck out Cap 4 times, but in the top of the second, he'd ring the bell 3 times with a 3-run home run. In the bottom half, Pollard would answer, and so would Josh Swan as they both go deep in the inning. And after a Darren McGuire double off the fence would end the inning, and the Quackers were up 18-7. But in the next frame, Chris Wilson would lead off with a home run. Then with the bases loaded, the Quackers in trouble. And Josh Swan gets a little help from his defense. Going into the third, the Quackers were up 10, and Darren McGuire and Josh Swan would help to bring across 2 more runs, making it 20-8. In the fourth, the Whompers, they start a comeback behind Josh Neff. He homers there, and then later in the inning, he'd bring across a run. So in comes Pollard to finish the job. And in the bottom half, if you can believe it, the Quackers scored more. Pollard would homer again, and Darren McGuire to end the inning and the game. The Quackers win this one big, 29-13. Game 3 was the Suns versus the Bombers. Hines on the mound, and Kevin Hammond, just a little poke there, opposite field, and Matt Hines would start to struggle. So in comes Chris Terborg, and he was sitting him down like we're at the dinner table with 2 straight strikeouts. But the Suns would score 2 in the first, and pitching for the Suns was done by Trevor Swan. He'd hold them to 0 until the bottom of the second when Jay Kotcher tied the game with a 2-run home run. In the third, Chris Terborg makes a nice catch and the play at first for 2 outs, and the Bombers struggled a bit hitting, and then Jay Kotcher would fly out, or it appears. JT trying to find the ball, and eventually his ego as he drops the ball and misses the throw at second. That would open the door for Kotcher. Later in the inning, hit a grand slam. The Bombers were up 8 runs. So in the fourth, the Suns trying to come back. JT Williams hustling around the bases for a run. And in the bottom, Kotcher's home run would force a pitching change to Jake McWilliams, and he was looking good. He got 2 quick strikeouts before it happened. And by it, I mean the Bombers' offense. They would catch on to McWilliams' pitching. Hines would go deep in the inning. And in the fifth, that was all Terborg would need as he strikes out this side, and the Bombers go on to win this one, 20-3. The last game was the Workhorses versus the Dozers, coming right down to the finish. In the first, bases loaded, Mike Hackett would get the runner going home, but later in the inning, Steve Gaffney would triple, bringing across 2, and the Dozers were up 4 after 1, and in the second, Mike Anderson had enough. He'd hit a home run to lead things off. Mike Hackett made it back-to-back. He'd add another home run in the third as the Workhorses scored 9 in between the 2 innings before John Capitelli would finally get Eric Graham at first to end the inning. The Workhorses elect to walk Steve Gaffney in the bottom, leaving the bases loaded for Matt "I Make Miracles" Hayes. As his grand slam takes the lead in the next inning, Steve Gaffney puts on the binoculars with his home run, and John Capitelli would add another as they go up by 4. In the fifth, they were struggling on defense, though. The Dozers were unable to make some plays, and Mike Anderson certainly hitting the ball well. Eric Graham would add a triple, and the Workhorses end up getting 7 in the inning as the Dozers still struggled in the field. So down by 3, Steve Gaffney, his 3rd home run in a row, and John Cap would add another, his 2nd on the day, and then Steve Gaffney looks like he has another, but Mike Hackett's going to come down with it. It's all tied at 19s. The Workhorses couldn't get any runs, and they just couldn't make the plays in the field, so the bases loaded for Matt Hayes in the last inning. A long fly ball. Mike Hackett makes the catch, but can't get the runner going home, and the Dozers win this 20-19.